Senator Barack Obama has suggested he could support careful, well-thought-out drilling off the U.S. coast. Not, his campaign suggests tonight, the first time he has supported more drilling, just the first time he said so bluntly. Our fourth story, breaking news from Florida and an interview with two newspapers there, to some degree overshadowing Obama's answer today to the McCain gas tax holiday, which would be an energy rebate funded by a windfall profits tax on big oil companies. My interest is in making sure we've got the kind of comprehensive energy policy that can bring down gas prices. If, in order to get that passed, we have to compromise in terms of a careful, well-thought-out drilling strategy that was carefully circumscribed to avoid significant environmental damage, I don't want to be so rigid that we can't get something done. Obama responding to news out of Washington that a bipartisan group of 10 senators, including several conservative Democrats, had finally hammered out some kind of agreement on limited new drilling. Earlier in the day, the Obama campaign had issued this statement. I remain skeptical that new offshore drilling will bring down gas prices in the short term or significantly reduce our oil dependence in the long term, though I do welcome the establishment of a process that will allow us to make future drilling decisions based on science and fact. But I've always believed that finding consensus will be essential to solving our energy crisis, and today's package represents a good faith effort at a new bipartisan beginning. And then there is the crucifix to big oil, emergency rebates to offset energy costs. $500 for individuals, $1,000 for couples, to be paid for by the bane of the oil industry, a windfall profits tax.
Now, keep in mind, ExxonMobil announced that it had made $12 billion, almost $12 billion last quarter, more than any U.S. corporation has ever made in a single quarter. It's time we use some of those record profits to help ordinary Americans pay for record prices.
Senator Obama also relaunched a favorite election cycle phrase to pivot this election back to a referendum on the status quo.
Do you think that you are better off now than you were 4 years ago or 8 years ago? And if you don't think you're better off, do you think you can afford another 4 years of the same failed economic policies that we've had under George W. Bush?
Meantime, one day after ExxonMobil announced record profits, the nation's second largest oil company, Chevron, announced its second quarter sales, $81 billion, its highest ever profit. But in Congress, the cry from Republicans is offshore drilling complete with stunts. Minority Leader Boehner and other GOP leaders refusing to leave the House floor even after today's adjournment for the August recess, even after the lights and microphones were turned off, demanding a vote on offshore drilling. To Senator McCain then in Panama City, Florida, saying he knows what Americans really want.
They want offshore drilling, and they want to drill now. And I met with independent oil company executives recently who told me that they could utilize existing facilities to increase our oil supply in a matter of months and build new facilities in a very short space of time. Now, that's what they say.
Please stop yelling at me, sir. Let's call in Newsweek magazine senior White House correspondent, MSNBC political analyst Richard Wolff. Richard, good evening.
Good evening, Keith.
Obama's camp says this thing today, this is not a shift. He's talked about doing this in those fields already designated for drilling, including those that are in the offshore area. But why say this today? Why bring this up and make it public today?
Well, I think there clearly is a shift, actually, and that's why the candidate is spending so much energy explaining the shift and using such pained language about a compromise. However, as the campaign points out, this is less to do with policy than it is about pragmatism. That, in fact, there is all sorts of things in this compromise that the candidate supports, like support for alternative energy and biofuels, support for Detroit to come up with a new generation of cars, and that he has a position where offshore drilling is okay as long as it's in the existing leases. But in the end, what you're looking at is a candidate who believes more in bipartisan compromise than in the sort of hardcore environmental principles which oppose offshore drilling.
All right, that's a policy decision, and there's some validity to it and some reason for criticism of it. But why politically go for the partial offshore drilling tonight rather than wait to see if those magic words that he issued earlier today, $1,000 rebate, might have resonated the way the less direct ones that offshore drilling did for McCain? Why not give that thing a chance to see if it can get up on its hind legs?
That's a good point, and it's a good strategic point. And I think that we'll still be debating the $1,000 rebate, because after all, the gas tax holiday issue is still out there. The question of immediate relief for consumers is still going to be very relevant. What happens today is, of course, you've got two candidates campaigning in Florida, Congress going on its vacation, and it's a difficult political issue for Democrats. They want to neutralize this because it's the single issue that, in a sense, the McCain campaign and Republicans feel that they have going for them with this general election.
The advice from Paul Krugman last night here was that Senator Obama should go after offshore drilling and the gas tax holiday, strike them hard as GOP political ploys that will not have any impact positively, virtually at all, and certainly not for 10 years. Did he now miss that opportunity completely? Is there no way back from this position?
Well, I think there is a way back, which is that this doesn't deal with a short-term issue. But in fact, neither candidate's policies really deal with the short-term problems of gas prices. Alternative energies, a new generation of cars, all of these things are going to take time. So will offshore drilling. That's why the rebate issue versus the gas tax holiday is the question right now of how do you help people who are suffering at the pump.
Are the Republicans going to come back? Let me ask this last strategy question. Are the Republicans going to come back at some point over this weekend and say, well, Obama was against offshore drilling, even whatever his previous policies actually were? They certainly were not advertised to the degree that this one has been. And now suddenly he's for it. Are they going to come back and hit him as a flip-flopper? Is that refrain going to be sung again over the weekend and the beginning of next week?
I'm sure they are, and the difficult thing is that he's here for compromise, and the other side is really going for the jugular. I mean, these two elements of campaigning don't match up, because Obama, in the end, is the leader of the party, and they want to manage what's going on in Congress as well. That's a difficult difference of strategy that is very hard for the Obama campaign to control.
Our own Richard Wolff, also, of course, of Newsweek magazine. Great thanks, Richard. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, Keith.